Wellness Rhythm Show. Find your rhythm. Live your wellness.
Y'all, let me tell you something. My husband turned 45 last year, and I noticed something shift. Not dramatic, not overnight, but he was tired in a different way. Less motivated, a little more foggy. And when I brought it up, he looked at me like I'd suggested he go see a psychic.
Right. And here's what I've learned. That reaction is almost universal. Men are conditioned to push through, not investigate. But there's actual biology happening that deserves a real conversation.
Which is exactly why we're doing this episode. We're talking about andropause, the male hormonal shift that starts quietly around 40, affects millions of men, and almost nobody is discussing it openly.
And to be clear up front, this isn't about fear. It's about understanding what's happening in your body so you can actually do something useful about it.
So let's start with the basics. Andropause. Some people call it male menopause, but that comparison is a little misleading, right?
It is. The term andropause refers to the gradual decline in testosterone that most men experience from around their mid-30s onward. The American Urological Association has documented this extensively. We're talking roughly a 1 to 2% drop per year.
Which sounds small, but compound that over a decade and suddenly you're at 75 or 80% of what you had at 30. That's not nothing.
Precisely. And unlike menopause, which is a distinct biological event, this is slow and incremental, which actually makes it harder to recognize because men don't have a clear marker. No last cycle, it just quietly accumulates.
Here's the thing though, the symptoms are often mistaken for just life. Fatigue, reduced libido, brain fog, irritability, gaining weight around the middle. My husband thought he was just stressed from work.
And he probably was stressed from work, that's the complexity. The Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism has published research showing that chronic stress elevates cortisol, which actively suppresses testosterone production, so stress and hormonal decline can feed each other.
So it's not either or, it's often both happening at once, which explains why so many men in their 40s and 50s feel like they're running on fumes.
Right? And this brings us to the research angle. Dr. Abraham Morgan-Taylor at Harvard Medical School has been one of the more prominent voices pushing back against the idea that declining testosterone is just normal aging you should accept. His work argues that quality of life matters and that there are evidence-based tools beyond medication.
Okay, so before anyone panics, we are not talking about anything clinical or prescriptive here. We're talking about the wellness side. What can men actually do with this information?
Exactly the right framing. And it's actually quite a lot. Let's dig into the research here. Sleep is probably the single most underestimated lever.
Oh, this one gets me fired up. Y'all, sleep is not optional. The University of Chicago published a study where healthy young men slept just 5 hours a night for 1 week, and their testosterone levels dropped by 10 to 15%.
In healthy young men. So if you're already dealing with natural age-related decline and you're chronically undersleeping, you're accelerating the problem significantly.
And I know our audience. You've got guys in their 50s helping aging parents, running companies, raising teenagers. Sleep is the first thing that gets sacrificed, and the hormonal cost is real.
Right. So the practical question becomes, what's the minimum effective dose of sleep protection? The National Sleep Foundation recommends 7 to 9 hours for adults. Even moving from 5.5 to 7 can produce meaningful hormonal improvement within weeks.
Okay, let's talk about the other big one, exercise. Because I know some of our listeners are already active, but the type of exercise matters here, doesn't it?
Brilliantly important point, Emma, yes. Research published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology found that resistance training, compound movements like squats, deadlifts, rows, produced the most significant acute testosterone response compared to cardio alone.
Which doesn't mean ditch the cardio, because cardiovascular health matters enormously for men over 40. But if the only thing a guy is doing is long, slow runs and skipping the weights, there's a gap.
And the dose matters too. Overtraining actually elevates cortisol, which, as we mentioned, suppresses testosterone. Consistency over intensity. 3 to 4 sessions of resistance work per week appears to be a solid, evidence-based target.
Here's the thing, though. This is where I want to acknowledge the sandwich generation guys specifically. If you're 48, managing a demanding job, possibly dealing with your own parents' health needs, and trying to be present for your kids, carving out gym time feels almost insulting as advice.
Fair point, and I'll acknowledge my own position. I have more schedule flexibility than many. But research from Rangan Chatterjee, the British physician and author of Feel Better in 5, actually supports microdosing movement. Even 10 to 15 minutes of bodyweight resistance work done consistently can deliver meaningful physiological benefit.
I love that framing. Lower the bar enough that you actually do it. A 10-minute body weight session at 6 a.m. beats a 1-hour session you never get to.
Right, now let's address the nutrition side briefly because there's a lot of noise here and I want to be precise.
Please, because the internet will tell you to eat a dozen oysters and rub wild yam on your chest.
Yes, let's skip those. What the evidence actually supports from the Endocrine Society's published guidelines is that zinc and vitamin D deficiency are both independently associated with lower testosterone levels in men.
And both are incredibly common deficiencies in adult men. Zinc is in foods like pumpkin seeds, beef, and legumes. Vitamin D, well, half the world is deficient, especially people working indoors in northern climates.
Which brings us to a natural moment to mention. If you're a regular listener and finding this useful, please do like and subscribe. It genuinely helps us reach more people having exactly this kind of conversation.
Yes, and share this one with a man you love, honestly, because so many men are dealing with this silently and don't even have language for it.
Now, let's address the skepticism head-on because I think it's warranted. There is a real concern that andropause as a concept has been commercially exploited. Testosterone replacement clinics, supplement companies making extraordinary claims.
Yes, y'all, I've seen ads for testosterone supplements that promise to make you feel 25 again in 3 weeks. And that is not what we're talking about.
The British Society for Sexual Medicine has cautioned against treating andropause as a universal condition requiring universal treatment. Hormone levels vary enormously between men. What feels like andropause in one man may have a completely different underlying cause. Thyroid function, sleep apnea, depression, metabolic issues.
Which is why the message is, if something feels off, investigate it. Talk to a doctor. Get blood work. Don't self-diagnose and definitely don't self-prescribe. But also don't dismiss it as just getting older.
Right. The wellness piece. Sleep, resistance training, nutrition, stress management. Those are appropriate, beneficial, and evidence-supported for virtually all men over 40, regardless of where their hormones land on a chart.
And honestly, the stress management piece might be the quietest and most powerful one. The work of Dr. Robert Sapolsky at Stanford, his research on chronic stress and its physiological cascade, makes it very clear that psychological stress has direct hormonal consequences.
Meditation, social connection, time in nature, these aren't soft lifestyle suggestions. They have measurable effects on cortisol regulation, which affects testosterone, which affects energy, mood, and body composition. It's all connected.
Here's the thing, though. I also want to name the emotional side of this. Men experiencing andropause symptoms often pull back, get quieter, feel less like themselves, and that isolation makes everything worse.
Agreed, and I'll say this, having language for what's happening actually helps. Men who understand there's a physiological explanation for feeling flat often find it easier to seek support, not harder.
Because it's not weakness, it's biology, and biology you can actually work with.
Right, if I had to distill this entire episode into one actionable thing, protect your sleep aggressively. It is the most evidence-supported, free, accessible lever that men over 40 have for hormonal and overall wellness. Start there before anything else.
I love that, and I'd add, have the conversation. Whether you're the man in your household or you love one, just talk about it. The silence around men's health is doing real damage, and episodes like this exist because we think that can change.
It's not a crisis, it's a chapter, one that's actually quite manageable with the right information.
Y'all, thank you so much for spending this time with us on the Wellness Rhythm Show. If this resonated, share it, subscribe, and come back next week. We've got more real talk where this came from.
And perhaps slightly fewer wild yam recommendations.
Until next time, take good care of yourselves, all of you. This show is part of the VoxCrea.AI system. If you want a show like this for your organization without building it yourself,
go to VoxCrea.AI and request a sample episode.